Canine Detection Collaborative, a detection dog training trio with Stacy Barnett.
Hi.
Robin Greubel.
Hey there.
And Crystal Wing.
What's up?
With humor and a big dose of theory, our trio talks practical training advice and features interviews with top trainers and scientists. It's Canine Detection Collaborative.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Canine Detection Collaborative podcast. I am Robin Greubel, and I am here with Stacy Barnett.
Hello.
And our super special guest today is Mr. Steve White.
Who's that?
He's like this epic person who I think I met in 2003.
And I'm like just like a super fan.
I think it was about that you had Jen and I come out to your place.
No, I met you. You were in Minneapolis.
Oh, no. It was Chicago for Clicker Expo, the very first one.
Because it was, I know. This should tell you how far we go back.
This is like, we're testing both of your memories.
Yes, it was, you did a scent in a bottle seminar.
Oh, with Bob Bailey?
This was literally set in a bottle. You were still putting hot dog water in a bottle in Minneapolis. And I had my border collie who was 10 months old. So he was so it had to be 2002.
So that was one that Jenny Shadrick put together, I think.
Mm-hmm. I just remember sitting on the floor with you. I had never seen a clicker. And you sat on the floor with me with my little scared border collie and taught me how to teach him to touch his nose to something using a clicker.
That's awesome. That's a hell of a story. And look where you are now.
I know. Yes. And then you went through the whole scent in the bottle thing. And then I think we ended up touching base. I think the first Clicker Expo was in 2005?
No, it was earlier than that, I think.
Was it? Yeah.
I think it was 2003.
Okay. Because fast forward that, we ended up touching base again out in 2003 at the first Clicker Expo.
You know what's really scary? Some of our listeners had never been born yet.
Stop.
Yeah.
Hey, that's okay. I probably did some of this stuff before either of you were born.
You were probably correct.
I'm just saying.
Okay, so for those listeners, Steve, give us the Cliff Notes version of your career and kind of where you came from.
So for the longest time, I said my canine career started when I went into the Army and first got trained to be a military police working dog handler back in 1975. But as I thought back on it, I realized even before I went to high school, like when I was like middle school age, I was walking dogs in New York City for people. And I didn't realize it that while my friends were out babysitting and making money that way, I was making more money walking dogs. And it wasn't like it was a conscious job decision. It was just people who saw me walking my dog at that time said, "Hey, I'm going to be busy. Can you come and get my dog and take it for a walk?"
Wow.
Especially when the weather was bad. They liked having somebody come and take their dog when the weather was bad.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Valid.
And I did the occasional gig when they would be out overnight and things like that and take care of their dogs. But most of the time they were home. They just didn't want to go out in the weather. So I'd get on the elevator with my dog, go up, get theirs, off we go. Everything was fine and dandy. I didn't realize that. So I did a retrospective one year for Wicked Minds, pardon me, the Art and Science of Animal Training Conference. And I thought all of a sudden I realized that was actually my beginning where I started doing this. Now, you got to realize I was an only child way back before Murphy Brown made it hip. And this is also a cultural reference that many of your listeners will not understand.
Oh, we're not going to get... We actually know who Murphy Brown is.
But this was back in the 1950s. I had a single mom. And when I grew up with her, I didn't have anybody to come home to except our dog and cat. So little Pete and Pixie were my were my daily companions when I came home. And that's probably why I have no social skills with human beings anymore. I mean, it's just like the foundation was laid right then and
For
there.
animals. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it.
I mean, you really, come on, let's be honest about this. Let's really be honest.
Yeah.
If you're in the Venn diagram of all human beings, there are the dog people.
Yeah.
And maybe we dog people are dog people because we're not so much people. Just saying.
It is.
And then there's the control people. When that two overlaps, they're your dog trainers.
Yeah. And so you started walking dogs, and then you were a military working dog handler.
Mm-hmm. Then I got out, worked for a small department that didn't have in between that, before I got hired in law enforcement, I was working in private security for an alarm company, and I was alarm response. So if one of the alarms would get off, the city would charge people for false alarms. So the service they offered is they would have an armed officer with a dog respond to the alarm and check and make sure if there was any kind of sign of forced entry, then we just stand by and call the police. If there was no sign of forced entry, but it looked like maybe a door was just left unlocked, we go ahead and clear the building with our dog and then lock it back up.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And I did that for a year with the Doberman, and then wound up getting hired onto a police department in city of Mercer Island, which is a small bedroom community outside the city of Seattle. It's a bit pinkies up, if you know what I mean. Very, very shishi. So, and so I didn't know. That was not a good fit for me. Off I went. And, went over to the country. I'd worked as a deputy sheriff at Kitsap County. Pretty quickly after I got there, I had a dog and worked a patrol dog there. Then went to Seattle in 87 and stayed there until I retired in 2021. And since then, I just teach. I do a couple of canine seminars a year. If somebody wants something, I primarily in the business or law enforcement or military sector. I kind of staying in that niche now because there's not much I can teach in the civilian realm that y'all don't know already. Right. So my thing is trying to make I don't want to say a cultural shift in the military and law enforcement working dog world so much as shift in perspective for them about what's possible with their dogs. So I'm always about trying to rethink what's possible with a dog.
You want to talk about that a little bit, or kind of like your from to kind of vision?
Do you want the part that's going to torque some people off, or do you want the part that sounds really good in public?
To be honest, let's go with the torque people off part.
I'm going to defer to Robin on that one. I'm just sitting there going, yeah, torque them. But okay.
This is not a slam on anybody, any particular individual, any particular company, or anything else. But a lot of not all, but a lot of the law enforcement canine world is driven by what vendors can provide.
Correct.
That's the dogs that they provide. And then some of them provide initial training and some of them provide maintenance training on top of that.
Right.
Like, for example, in California, where California Post recommends 16 hours of training per month, they will provide a training package for you that will get you your 16 hours a month. That doesn't mean you're actually getting 16 hours of training, because if you think about it, what's the easiest way to get maybe 150, 200 canine teams through 16 hours of training in the course of a month when you've got maybe 4 people as your staff?
Right.
So the easiest way is to take that large group, break it into smaller groups, maybe send 2 trainers to a local high school football field and 2 more to a different one. Take that group, and now you got that, split that in half. Now split it again in half. You have an A team and a B team. The A team will show up on the first and third Saturdays of the month, and the B team will show up on the second and fourth Saturdays of the month. Everybody gets 8 hours of training per day, with their cars parked around the track at the stadium or whatever.
Yep.
And getting their dog out to do an exercise and come back.
Yeah, the dog's not getting the team is not getting 8 hours together.
Right. And so you are getting training if you get out of your car and you take the initiative and you go watch and you go learn. All right. So they'll record 8 hours of training. Yeah. But you got to realize this is because, and it's not universal. I'm not saying this is universal, but it is something that is done. And the one thing about it, and I teach at canine seminars, like this time next week, I'm going to be in Reno teaching for the Western States Police Canine Association. And that I do that one every year for the past few years. And I will candidly say that I think it's a good one. We focus on safety, we focus on control, but the reality is when you get a large number of people moving through a scenario during a course of a day, you wind up training to the lowest common denominator. What kind of exercise can I design that will fit the group that I anticipate getting? And that doesn't mean there's no value to that training, but it does mean it is very hard to optimize it for a given team.
Yes.
You'll come in and then halfway in, you'll realize this one's in over their head, put the brakes on, make an adjustment. Here we go from there. Or you realize this one is just a walk in the park for some of the dogs. And all they're doing is getting the log training hours, but they aren't doing what I think training's purpose is.
Yeah.
Training's purpose, the way I see it, is to find the edges of performance and then to gently nudge them out in a systematic fashion so that you may not expand your repertoire, but you expand your capabilities within your repertoire.
Well, and a friend of mine who does bird dog work, he's like, I'm always trying to find the edge. And we're trying to push the edge just a little bit with that team. And when you're doing large group classes, it's really hard to always find that edge with each team and design a problem or set up a scenario that can always find that edge, because unless you've got them for 3 or 4 days, and you can't push things. I mean, I just did a cadaver dog seminar where I had everything from a 5-month-old puppy all the way up to operational level dogs.
Yeah.
And being able to set things up that can handle that. And we ended up doing some things, which was fine, but it's really hard to push things. And then when you're working in the space where you're bringing in handlers that come from different departments and different backgrounds and foundations, it's hard to push them.
It is. And actually, as a handler, if you're coming in with an operational dog and you're in a group and the other teams are not operational, or you may only have another operational dog, and it's like you get the same exercise, you're not being pushed. And it's like you come out of that like, okay, well, I logged the hours, but my dog has seen every single one of these types of setups. Trying to come out and trying to push and trying to learn something new out of that is hard, even as a handler. So, yeah, reach.
And see, I don't want to fault the vendors on this because I understand what's going on.
You get pushed into that.
Yeah. The problem is every day that dog sits in a kennel is eating into their margin.
Yeah.
And the margin's not as thick as a lot of people would think it is. It costs a lot of money to fly to Europe. And most of the dogs coming into the law enforcement realm in the United States, particularly for patrol dogs, come from Europe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, detector dogs, there are some locals. You take a look, for example, Ken Pavlik at Pacific Coast Canine. He drives all up and down the West Coast. He flies all across the country finding sporting dogs, hunting dogs that will wind up becoming viable working dog candidates.
I see labs, advertisement for labs, people asking for labs all the time on Facebook.
Yeah. And you go to the UK, you'll see it's Springers.
Yeah.
You can't find a Springer Spaniel there because they're all getting snapped up by law enforcement, or they were the last time I was there. And it looks that way from the photos because they've got some systems that really work well that Springers fit. And most of their work for those dogs is explosive detection. So going back to this, you can't blame the vendors. Time is money to them in every real sense of the word. And you can't blame the people that produce the dogs. In the old days, back before the fall of the Berlin Wall, the dogs that were coming for Europe were sport cast-offs.
Oh.
And they would raise a dog for Schutzhund in those days. That's what they called IGP then. They would raise a dog for Schutzen, and the German model was build drive until the dog's, like he's obsessed with holding the sleeve. And then when he's about a year and a half old, you will teach him the out, and usually involve compulsion. Some dogs got it, some dogs didn't. Dogs that didn't get it got put on the market. Or for whatever reason, somebody puts a lot of time and energy into that dog as a sport prospect. And then for whatever reason, they think this isn't the dog that is going to take me to the level I need to go in my sport career. And so they move it on. And those were dogs that came to the United States back in the 70s and 80s. A couple of vendors were prominent in getting that. You had a very few that had connections in the law enforcement realm. We'll get some of those dogs, but even law enforcement in Germany were getting sport cast-offs because the culture was built around it.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but there is a trade-off associated with it. And if you get a really sporty dog, you're getting a dog whose foundation has been laid for the structure of
sport.
The rules of the sport, whatever that sport is.
On the street, there are no rules.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we'll get into that later.
Okay.
I can't wait.
But then when the Berlin Wall came down, Eastern European dogs were available. East German, the Seattle Summit in the 90s, we got some early East German Shepherds that came over, and they were awesome. I can't begin to tell you how awesome they were. They came out of the womb with their nose on the ground wanting to track.
Wow.
They were structurally not like what you would see coming from West Germany. They were very square, fair number of sables, and compact but sturdy build. And they were just a joy to work. All right. And through the years, more and more dogs from those lines have been produced. And now Eastern Europe has started producing dogs for the market. And a lot of the Eastern European dogs don't get much in the way of foundation training except how to pass the selection test.
Oh, okay.
And the selection test is largely, is this dog environmentally comfortable? Will it go in any space? Will it climb on anything? Will it jump over anything?
Yeah.
Will it crawl under everything? If it will, great. Now, will it search for a ball doing those things? If so, yay. Check, move that one on. Now, will that dog grab a sleeve and not let go? Check, move that dog on. And then really savvy ones know how to prepare the dog to pass a civil test where there's no sleeve. So in other words, they don't see it as a game, it's a toy, but they have to actually withstand a challenge from somebody without equipment, which is, if you think of the way dogs get raised sometimes, there may be a natural association with some people that a dog will go, ooh, man, not going to challenge those hairless primates. They're kind of testy. And so you're looking to see a dog who still has the gumption to maybe not go looking for a fight, but stand his ground. That's, to me, for me, the ideal dog is not the high energy dog that everybody picks and says, oh, that's the one I want.
Right. Not the spinner, the barky one.
I want the one who just looks at everything that's going on and is comfortable with it. Not looking at it like, where's, this is not good. I want the one that looks around and says, yeah, this is cool. And is comfortable. One of our first training masters, Larry Franklin, to describe that dog as self-right. They're perfectly comfortable anywhere in the world doing anything. You show them something new and they kind of go, cool. All right. I like that. We'll try that. And the dogs that never go looking for a fight, but will gladly finish it if it comes their way. And that was the patrol dogs that we looked for.
Mm-hmm.
And in those days, Seattle didn't have, we have still to this day, Seattle PD does not have a budget for dogs. They get dogs from donation through the Seattle Police Foundation, so money is there that way. But there is no line item budget for dogs. There never has been. So they were taking dogs out of people's backyards when I started.
Oh, wow.
And that's how I got every dog I had up until the mid-1990s.
Okay.
Every dog I had before that was out of the pound or out of somebody's backyard. And you're trying to turn that dog into a police dog.
Oof.
And we would look at 200 dogs before we'd find one that would make it not only through training, not one that would make it through testing, make it through training, and then make it through the transition between training to being a true journey level police dog.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
That's a lot.
That was a lot of work.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
That's a lot of Not that dog.
Not that
So
one.
getting the dogs from Europe shortens that process up. Plus, they usually come with a guarantee, a workability guarantee. If within a given amount of time,
Right.
that dog doesn't
Right.
work out for your system, they'll go ahead and let you bring that dog back and swap it out for another one.
Right. They put
You're
it
not
back
going to
in
get
the
your money
machine.
back, but you'll get to swap it out for another one.
Right.
Yeah. If you compare that to the amount of time that you spend like weeding through 200 dogs.
Right.
I'm a firm believer that Thomas Sowell is right. There are no solutions. There are only trade-offs.
Yes.
And the trade-offs you get with this are like, I'll tell you what, the people who became trainers in the system where you're taking dogs out of people's backyards
Yep.
they developed a different skill set than the ones who bought the dogs coming from Europe that already had a lot of foundation laid.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
European trainers have a lot of skill. Things have shifted, and that's there. People are starting to get more information. That's why I still do this. Personally, I mean, like I said, I retired in 2021. Other than that, and doing an expert witness gig here and there, and a few other things, my time is my own. But I do this, and I do the USPCA's, United States Police Canine Association Best Practices Group, for one reason and one reason only, is that I see the police canine community right now has got a target on its back.
Right.
And if we're not careful, we will lose the only tool in the law enforcement inventory that has the capability to go to the local stop and rob, follow a suspect's trail through the city 5 or 6, 7 blocks, maybe more, into somebody's backyard and find the perpetrator hiding under somebody's back deck. There's nothing else we've got that can do that. Helicopters with FLIR are cool, drones are cool, all that good stuff, but nothing. And also, that dog can be an evidentiary link between the place where they started that track at the local stop and rob to where that person was found. And you can say, because you've done scent discrimination training, with confidence that the person you found is the person on whom you started that track. That's the only tool that can do that. If you don't have that, then you're stuck with hoping that the detectives will get enough leads that they can do after the fact investigation and come up with it. And there are really good detectives out there. I know a few of them. I love them dearly, but they'll all tell you the quicker you can get somebody, the better it is. The easier it is for everybody involved. The detectives then just have to load out their case and send it to the prosecutors, and they're good to go.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking about all of the detection work that you're helping handlers work through, what are some of the top 3 things you wish people would get?
It's a great question.
First and foremost, a chain is only as strong as
The weakest link.
yes, and that applies to behavior chains too. So therefore, build fluency first of the individual component behaviors before you snap them together. That includes the basic search chain. If you think of most search work, like I'm going to separate my medical detection work away and some of the explosive work away for right now, because I don't consider those search dogs.
What do you consider them?
We'll talk
You're going to
about
get there. Okay.
We'll get
Okay.
there.
Okay. I'm like so excited about this.
For dogs that are search dogs, the chain is search, locate, and report.
Yep.
All right. Search for any whiff of the odor of the target odor. Locate the strongest concentration of that target odor available to you, and then report that you found it.
Yep.
Whatever that trained final response is, it could be a sit, it could be a down, it could be a pirouette with a nice little flourish at the end. Doesn't matter. Or it could be a stand and stare. It doesn't matter. Whatever works in your operational context, that's what you're going to do. But the big thing about this is a lot of the dogs in the old days, it's getting better, were initially conditioned to do maybe the search and locate pieces kind of simultaneously by taking a PVC pipe, putting the target odor in it and throwing it and having the dogs go fetch it. And they're associating the odor now. Then you change the vessel that it's in. Then you put the odor out there without the PVC pipe. The dog goes and investigates it. All of a sudden, the PVC pipe appears. Pretty soon they learned, oh, it's just this odor, not the smell of PVC, which is good because otherwise I'd be living, smelling around people's sprinkler systems, and that doesn't work. So the dogs that were conditioned that way, great searchers, don't get me wrong, but you couldn't trust them not to eat the hide at the end. because the law of primacy is the thing you learn first is the thing you default to under pressure and when arousal hits and the forebrain isn't completely running the show, all right, then all of a sudden you start gravitating those things that have muscle memory, the things you do, and you just, I got to fill my mouth when I get to this thing. All right. And some animals are hardwired for this. You know, we have the dogs that Jen and I had just passed away last year. And pretty soon thereafter, our daughter, who's living with us, got a really nice lab, an amazingly nice Labrador, super dog. But that dog, anytime she's excited, she has to fill her mouth.
Oh, yeah, because it's a lab.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and she will come to you with their favorite crinkly fish in there. You know, it's a big salmon because this is the Northwest. And she comes up to you and everything from her shoulders back is wiggling.
Yeah.
As she approaches with this thing in her mouth. And she doesn't need you to throw it. She doesn't need you to play tug with it. She just has to have it in her mouth while she's interacting with you.
It's a pacifier. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Hardwired and then amplified through upbringing. Okay, great, fine and dandy. But if you take a dog with that propensity and then you teach them, oh, no, you've got to get this thing and you make them fight for it, then all of a sudden they don't have that soft bird mouth anymore.
Nope.
And all you have to do is take a look at Randy Hare's videos, some of his old stuff on his website.
Yep.
You'll see a picture of a yellow lab jumping up on a stage. And that was a Washington State dog. I actually know that dog, know that handler. And that dog was an awesome dog. But he also had a couple of trips to the vet because he got a hold of something. And they had to get him there fast.
Yeah.
And that was a dog that was taught with a system where everything was about getting that thing in your mouth.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not alone. No fault to him. No fault to that handler.
Mm-hmm.
But the system that created that is one that didn't take into account the law of primacy. Now I certify, I do certification for explosive detection dogs, and I probably do over 100 of those a year. And you can tell the ones that have that in their history. Because when the handler may be slow to pay, if we take the search, locate, and report chain as report being sit, for example, sit is you, hairless monkey. It's here, pay me. Right?
Right.
If someone's slow to pay that dog, if they're like, want to test it and make sure they're right, and they're prompting go other places, see if the dog will be obedient to odor, then air quotes, folks, to you.
The air quotes. You saw that. You missed the air quotes out there in podcast land. Yes.
I'm just sitting here going, this is some.
They're checking to see if that dog would be an odor. And at that point, the dog goes, oh, apparently you weren't paying attention. Let me get your attention now. Oh.
Chomp.
Do you see? That is where it is. All right. You'll see those dogs sometimes revert to their early foundation work. And you'll do this.
I have a question. So you called that the law of primacy.
Yep.
What's the difference? Because I had always been calling that first order of learning.
First order conditioning, first order learning. Yeah. And I think I'm actually one that pointed in there. And somebody, I think that was a term that I came up with back in the day when I didn't know the correct term. And I was corrected with that. And somebody said, actually, that's about primacy. And if you take a look in some behavior textbooks, you'll find primacy as being referring to early learning.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Gotcha.
Oh, I love it when I learn something new.
And I say that as I'm a learning and behavior shaping practitioner. I am not an academic. Somebody wants to correct me on that. Tell them, they'll tell me, we'll get it right.
Great. I'm with you. I'm total practitioner. I know really smart people with letters behind their names that they can correct me at any point.
Yeah. I'm one of those guys. I majored GI benefits for a while, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So you can see like massive issues, like depending upon the target odor, especially, actually probably most target odors. I mean, you're talking explosives, narcotics, HR.
In the old days with narcotics dogs, you'd worried if they got some heroin in their mouth and they swallowed it. You'd worried if they got some
fentanyl. And
now fentanyl. you got to worry about if they sniff too hard.
Right.
That's a pretty scary prospect.
Yeah.
And with explosives, a lot of the stuff with explosives is you don't worry about mercury switches so much anymore because mercury switches is really our old technology. But there are still motion sensing devices built into cell phones that are used for trigger, things like that, if it's going to be that motion sensing trigger. And you don't want dogs batting around things that go boom. Just saying.
Okay. So we went on a cool little rabbit hole. So you were saying,
oh no, this is all part of the same
rabbit
question.
hole. I love that rabbit hole.
Part of the same question. Biggest problem is chains that are inappropriately constructed.
Okay.
Biggest problem. Without fluency. Biggest problem is they don't realize the degree of fluency they need to have. They underestimate. Most trainers underestimate the degree of fluency that individual component behaviors need before you snap together in a chain.
Oh, amen.
When you snap them together in a chain, now all of a sudden you're creating, because when you train it, the contingencies are pretty simple. You have stuff they want, they do this thing, they get the thing that they want.
So you mean obedience to odor is not some magical thing that just happens?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could see the snide look on Robin's face right now, you would be dismayed because she seems awfully sweet, but she is, the sarcasm drips from her lips as she says that.
We really should have the video. Too bad we don't keep the video for some of this stuff. It's like, it's the nonverbals are just
on that one.
So entertaining.
So, and I can say this because, Robin, we go way back.
Way back. Yeah.
We go back over 2 decades. So
yes.
we're looking at, we were both babies trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have 46 years in this business, but I don't have 46 years experience.
Right.
Because you know what? There's a difference between 20 years experience and 1 year of experience 20 times over. All right. So just realize that if you start just trying to do the same thing over and over again. So really, it isn't until much later when all of a sudden you realize, oh, there's so many more ways to go about this than I've been doing it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So you mean time in the saddle is not equal to knowledge?
Because if it was, I'd be smart as, oh, never mind. I will not say potty words on your podcast.
Oh. Sorry, it was the whole nonverbals kind of
discussion. Yeah.
So you build a behavior in context of the training context. You maybe throw in some other stuff there that spices it up. But then automatically, when you build it into a chain, now the initiating cue is different. And the initiating cue often is paired with environmental things that are happening in the moment.
Yes.
And all of a sudden that changes.
Uh-huh.
Classic example you'll see is, I don't know if you've ever had it because you guys are like perfect. So, but I've heard there are dogs that perform really, really well in training, but then they fall apart when you get into competition or you get into operations.
Oh, yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
Oh, ring nerves are a thing. Dogs have ring nerves? No, dogs don't have ring nerves.
Humans have ring nerves.
Yeah, because it means something to us. The dog is like, they're game for it. But when all of a sudden we get there and all of a sudden our voice, because we're tense, is like half an octave higher, and we're vibrating and we're sweating.
We're breathing through the top of our chest.
And the dog goes, okay, Stacy's a little weird today. I'm going to kind of keep a lookout and see what she's worried about.
Why is she not wearing her training shoes?
Right. Because if she clicks them 3 times, she'll be back home. So this is one of the things that people underestimate. And then they get out there. And now I'm going to talk about, because in the sport world, it's a different thing because you got to play by the rules. And so sport, you've got rules, you got structure, you've got things you got to do. In operations, you're just going to, you'll do whatever you have to get your problem solved. So for example, in operations for police dogs, you get a dog that will out cleanly every time in training, no problem. And then you get a real suspect who really wants to kill that dog, and the fight is on, and the dog says, I'm not letting go. Best defense is a good offense, and this guy wants to kill me. I'm not letting go. And then all of a sudden, now you have this problem that creates civil liability. I have been there. I've had one of my handlers do that. I've seen this problem. The problem is at that point, a lot of people say, we're just going to always do a physical removal of the dog and never have to worry about it. So they get break sticks, bite sticks, they get more tools of force to try and do this. And in the end, you wind up becoming a dog management tool instead of remaining a police officer, being able to do police work while your dog is doing their job. If you have to put your hands on your dog to control your dog, you're diminishing your capacity to operate. So that's from the patrol side of it. Now, for detection, where we run into problems is incomplete chains.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the things that we talk about, like, okay, my dog's not sitting at the end of the chain, no trained final response. Okay, well, maybe that's because earlier on in the chain, you taught the dog that it was this specific odor, this one right here. But the guy in the next county over has his same training aid, his methamphetamine, from a different provider.
Oh, okay.
And it's different here or different there. And different manufacturers of explosives produce their product by slightly different formulations, but they still have the same basic chemical piece in there. And you have to teach the dog to generalize. And until the dog has generalized stimulus control, where the odor is the stimulus that says, locate me and report, until the dog realizes that it is for this class of odors that all have these variants, you're going to have dogs that will show change of behavior, but they'll say, but I haven't been paid for anything close. I've been paid for the right thing,
Right.
And this goes way back, for tracking dogs. This goes back to the German tracking experiments. I don't know whether you've heard about that, but
I have, because I remember this from 2002.
Okay. So I wasn't there in 2002. So can you tell us?
All right. There are going to be people who will be unhappy with this. But as early as the mid 90s and late 90s, actually, probably one of America's premier canine trainers, largest volume, ran a program for an entire state, had trained in Germany. He and I got into debates about whether there was any distinct human scent for dogs to follow. Because he'd been trained in Germany and they had taught him, no, there isn't, he was going to prove it. And he was going to have, because he was in space, he was going to have somebody get into a spacesuit, because he worked in a place where there happened to be access to spacesuits. And he was going to have somebody lay a track in a spacesuit, which would therefore not let any of their scent come out. And the dog would be able to follow that. And he said that would prove that there's no human scent for dogs. They're just following ground disturbance. And I was like, okay. So we're trying to replicate the 1920s experiments that the Germans did, and in which they took, I'm trying to do this in a way that people can visualize this if I talk about it. But imagine a person walking a track, laying a track in a V shape, and they walk up a line from one corner of the field to the middle of the field.
Okay.
And then they take a turn and go back down to the opposite side of the end of the field they were on. So it's a V.
Okay.
At the same time, somebody is walking an opposite V from the other end of the field, but they meet in the middle at that point where they both change direction and go back up there.
Okay. So it's like an X kind
of. So dogs were trained to track, would follow the track of, and we'll call the person at the bottom track layer A, and the one at the top track layer B. Dog would follow the first leg of that two-leg track of track layer A up to the point where the two people met in the middle. They kind of zigzag around a bit, and then they would continue straight on the second leg of track layer B instead of following the second leg of track layer A.
Okay.
But they would do that only if there wasn't much difference in weight between the two track layers. If there was a large enough difference in weight between the two track layers, the dogs could correctly discriminate.
Oh, so they were trying to prove that they were going off of disturbance.
So, so now they said, oh, well, this is interesting. Let's see what happens. So they tested the theory.
Okay.
They actually built a little tower, 2 towers, with a cable between them and a little trolley. Track layer would walk up to the tower, climb the tower, get in the trolley, slide along the cable to the other side, get down the other tower, and walk away. Dogs would track to the tower, couldn't track anymore. There's no ground disturbance. Then they built a big giant wheel with feet on it and shoes. And they could pull it from a distance and roll it, and it would create footprints in the ground. And the dogs could follow that. From this, the Germans concluded that there was no human sense for dogs to follow. All right? Don't get me wrong. I mean, and like I say, there's going to be people like your comments are going to light up and people are going to say, this is old stuff. Yes, it is.
Yes. This is so funny.
But this is why methods matter.
Yeah.
How were those dogs trained to track?
Ground disturbance.
Yeah.
Yes, but how were they trained to track ground disturbance?
Food in the track.
Force trained.
Ear pinch.
Ear pinch.
Oh.
So the dog would be brought to the start of the track, laid down, dog would down, and it would be comfortable. Everything's great. Go ahead and tuck his ear in between their thumb and the dead ring of the choke collar. Give it a squeeze, create pain. Dog is like, oh my gosh. They shove the dog's nose in the first footprint and release the pressure. Don't let go of the ear, but just release the pressure enough to take the pain away. Pick the dog's head up, create pain out of the footprint, put it in footprint number 2, take the pain away. Pick up the head, pain, put the head down in the footprint, no pain. Pick up the head, more pain, put the nose down in the next footprint, take the pain away. After a while, those dogs were like, okay, I know what's going to happen. I'm just going to go to the next footprint. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And they were reliable to this. Now, I've had people tell me that made dog really want to put their nose in footprint. Would you agree?
Yeah.
No.
Has nothing to do with odor.
Oh, it says they were afraid to put their head up.
It made them afraid to put their nose anywhere but footprints.
Right.
Okay. Valid.
Right.
All right. That's the power of negative reinforcement. It makes viable alternatives unappealing.
Right.
All right. So 50, 60 years later than that, 50 some odd years later than that, a guy by the name of William Syrotuck, who is doing search and rescue in Washington State, wrote and the Sending Dog, which I am forever grateful to his widow, Jean Syrotuck Whittle, for allowing us to just freely share that information from that book and use the images and all that good stuff. She was just a delight when she came to teach us back in the 80s. The thing that Syrotuck did is he replicated those with trailing dogs from the German Shepherd search dogs of Washington State. And lo and behold, they had no problem executing those tasks. They weren't footstep for footstep trackers. They did not have the level of precision that had been the goal of training the dogs that they had before, but they could discriminate the scent very well.
Yeah.
And we found the same thing. And I didn't have a trolley to build, but I did have a half rack of beer I could give to a city light worker who had a boom truck. And I could have a track layer get in the cherry picker as he went around the block. And then eventually we found that we just pick people up in the van and drive them around. So we started training gap tracks to teach handlers how to read their dogs when they would have a negative, when the dog would have an absolute loss of track, so they could see it. They would know that spot. This is where it's going to happen. Watch your dog, not just when he's there, but watch what he does afterwards, because those are the important things that will tell you when your dog has track loss later on. And then we know where the track picks up again. We drive them around the corner, drop them off around the corner, and we would watch what the dog did when they got in the vicinity of that. And by the way, they may not automatically just pick it back up again, but they will probably show interest. And at that point, you can encourage it and build the skill of reacquisition. So this ties into the way we build our chains, and it ties into primacy, first order conditioning, if you will, that the way we train something matters. It makes a difference. I'm not saying one's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's all trade-offs. And if you pick a particular method, you're deciding the benefits you gain from that approach exceed the debits. And the benefit to debit ratio is better for what you're going to do with your dog in your environment than somebody else is going to do with their dog in their environment. All right? Different stroke for different folks. I'm all about that.
Right.
But realize that there's only one bad trade-off to make. And that's the trade-off you don't know you're making.
Yes. Absolutely.
And that is what the Germans didn't understand. They didn't understand that they're doing this. And guess what? I love my applied behavior analysis people. I love them to death. But if you ask them, what's the definitive measure for a behavior having been reinforced? What changes?
Frequency of the behavior.
Okay. What you say they're going?
People are too old to remember Jeopardy. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
We're too old. We're old. We remember it. Your young
Yeah.
audience won't. Don't mind me.
You have to phrase the answer as a question.
Right. So I'm not going to do that because I'm not Alistair Beck.
Yeah.
All right. But I'm not Art Fleming. Sorry. Can't do that. That's before Alec Trebek. I'm just going to tell you. See, that's how old I am. All right. But look at this. And when you get this old, you get kind of addled. So just, but think about this. If you ask any behavior analyst, what is the measure of reinforcement? What are you measuring? They're going to tell you it's frequency.
Okay.
Right? That the frequency of the behavior happens. And what is frequency? How often, right? How often it happens. But that's a definition that has some dependencies built into it that people didn't realize are there. Because if you look at fluency as being across a variety of measures, the fluency of a behavior is not just the accuracy, the shape of the behavior, the sit that is a tuck sit as opposed to a rock back sit.
Right.
But it is there's the shape of the behavior, the means of acquiring the behavior, the latency, which is the time between when the cue is given and the animal starts the movement, the speed, or the speed at which they execute it. In other words, once they start moving it, how fast do they do it, or how hard do they do it? Right? Intensity. In a Skinner box, all of those other things besides frequency are baked into the cake.
Right.
In the operant chamber, all of those other things are baked into the cake. If the animal doesn't press the bar hard enough, they don't get it. If they don't peck the key hard enough, they don't get it.
Right.
And you can set up timers on it so that it will only give you responses if they've waited a while, or you can leave it open and, the faster they peck, the more they get. And I've seen people in New Zealand have trained chickens to peck 3,000 times for one delivery of a reinforcer.
Wow.
Those are some gritty chickens.
Yeah. And the point is, you can stretch your reinforcement history out, and frequency is a measure of that. But when we're doing work for all sorts of other things, we're shaping other things besides frequency. And we have to understand that we're shaping latency, we're shaping speed and power, particularly in the biting sports or in law enforcement protection work where a dog is gripped. We want that dog. I want that dog to grab a hold firmly enough that person's not going to get away. I don't need them to crush them. I just need to make sure you're there. You're going to hold on. You're going to maintain your grip. And because that's all that's required. I don't need a dog to go in there and start doing the alligator roll and
thrashing and all the things.
Boom.
Right.
Because there are times, and maybe in a military context, it's different. And for some special operations work, it may be a little different. But if you think about it from the perspective of what I need once I'm there at the arrest, look, the dog as a tool of force is something they're second best at. They're good at it. But the only advantage they have over a human being is, one, there's a psychological deterrent. Some people will want to fight every person, every cop they see. They see that monkey in a blue suit and they're like, oh, let's go. I'm going to beat him into the ground. Right. But then they look at the dog, they go, no, I'm cool.
Teeth.
You want me to get in the car? I'll get in the car.
Yeah.
Teeth.
All right. That's a powerful way of, you can use that dog if you have the right dog and you have the right training, you can de-escalate a lot of situations that would get really ugly really quickly. But the other thing that dogs is this is kind of a sad testimony to our society, but it's the reality is that human life is valued more than dog life. And so if you have to make a choice, like if I've got a car up there and I'm afraid somebody's got a gun in that and they're waiting for officers to come peek their head over the sill of that car and shoot them, because he wants to go out in a suicide by cop. Well, guess what? I can have a dog run up there and go check that car and give me information about whether there's somebody there or not.
Yeah.
The dog will show me a change of behavior that we can stop it and we can kind of de-escalate things. If need be, the dog can actually go in and go do things. So that's a powerful tool that works for us in that regard. And that olfactory tool is one we can't replace with anything else.
Right.
If you think about it, there's nothing a dog can do to apply force to somebody that we as human beings can't do bigger, better, faster, harder if we wanted to, because we have the tools to do it.
Right.
But there's no other tool of force. The other thing, the most valuable thing that a police dog brings as a tool of force, it's the only tool in the police inventory that once launched towards its target can be stopped and can be redirected, or will redirect on its own to follow the path of the target.
Right.
And we haven't got bullets that bend.
Right.
I'm sorry.
They don't.
Yeah.
We don't have, and pepper spray goes wherever the wind blows. Taser darts, once they leave the taser, they go where they were pointed at the time you squeeze the trigger. So that being said, the dog is the only tool that can follow somebody, zigzag around, and get them in the midst of other things. And that solves a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And so if we lose police canine because of problems in the canine community, that's going to be, the sad result is when that tool's not there, then what's the alternative going to wind up being? You're probably going to see actually more police use of force in other means, and sometimes it's going to be deadly force. I'm hoping we can just figure out really good de-escalation skills, and we can take advantage of the fact that the one thing the dog brings to the table that nothing can replace, it's nose work.
Right.
There's nothing that can replace a dog's nose in our inventory. And we need to take advantage of that and keep it available. And the only way we're going to do it is by focusing on that first. And that's why I'm on a podcast right now talking about it with people who nose work is their primary purpose in life. Y'all eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff.
Yep.
So we're going to take a break for this week right there. And you're going to have to wait until next time for the rest of our conversation with Steve, which, by the way, is really fascinating. We're going to continue the discussion about the difference between the rest of search dogs and the medical and explosives dogs and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Go train.
Canine Detection Collaborative! We appreciate the time you spend with us. If you liked this episode, not only should you follow us so you don't miss the next one, but please also rate and review us in your favorite podcast app. For info on collaborating with us, go to k9detectioncollaborative.com. That's K9 detectioncollaborative.com, where you can find our socials and pick up our latest monthly freebie. Join us again to talk training in the next episode.